There may be a pigeon near your window right now. It may be standing on a balcony rail. It may be walking across the sidewalk. It may be pecking near a trash can. You have seen hundreds of pigeons this week. You probably ignored every single one. And you probably never thought of dinner. But that is the strange part. For most of human history, people did. Ordinary people ate pigeons. Kings ate pigeons. Emperors ate pigeons. Nobles ate pigeons. People even built special buildings for pigeons. These birds were not always street pests. They were once valuable food. They were controlled carefully. They were protected by power. They were one of the most desired meats in the world. So the question is not simple. Why do we not eat pigeons today? The deeper question is stranger. How does any animal become food? And how does food become disgusting? Stay till the end. The last part will completely change how you think about this. By the end, you will see disgust differently. You will see how food is shaped. By money, by memory, by status, by fear, by culture, and maybe you will never see pigeons the same way again. To understand pigeons, we need a bigger idea. Humans do not eat everything around them. Every society has invisible food rules. Some animals feel normal. Some animals feel horrifying. Some foods feel sacred. Some foods feel dirty. Some foods feel luxurious. Some foods feel desperate. Anthropologist Marvin Harris studied this question. He wanted to know why food taboos exist. In his book, Good to Eat, he made a bold argument. Food taboos are usually not random. They may look religious. They may look traditional. They may look like taste. But underneath, there is often cold logic. The logic is practical. Does the animal make economic sense? Can people raise it cheaply? Can people manage it easily? Can it turn food into meat efficiently? Does it fit the environment? Does it fit the way people live? If yes, it can become food. If no, it can become taboo. Harris used this logic for many animals. The pig in the Middle East, the cow in South Asia, the dog in Europe. Each has a cultural story. Each also has a practical story. Now apply this to pigeons. Something fascinating appears. At first the numbers work perfectly. Then they suddenly stop working. That shift explains the pigeon's fall. The story begins far from city streets. Before city pigeons, there were cliff birds. Their ancestor was the wild rock dove. It nested in caves and rocky cliffs. It lived across North Africa and the Middle East. It was tough. It was fast. It adapted well. But one trait changed everything. It came home. However far it flew, it returned. Humans noticed this. Humans always notice useful animals. First, they may have left food nearby. Then they made artificial ledges. Then they built special pigeon homes. These became dovecotes and pigeon towers. They were not small hobbies. They were ancient farming technology. Pigeon towers existed in Egypt by at least 3000 BC. Some researchers think they were even older. From there, pigeon keeping spread. It moved through the Middle East. It appeared in Greece. It crossed the Roman Empire. Later, it became rooted in medieval Europe. In medieval England, the dovecote meant power. It was not just a birdhouse, it was a status symbol. For centuries, only nobles could own one. Keeping pigeons was a legal privilege. It was tied to land. It was tied to status. It was tied to law. The system was very revealing. The lord owned the pigeon tower. The pigeons flew over nearby fields. They ate grain from those fields. But peasants worked those fields, so the birds ate peasant grain. Then they returned to the lord. The peasants could not take them. The lord could. In winter, the Lord had squab. Squab is a young pigeon. It is taken before it can fly. For centuries, it was prized meat. It was tender. It was rich. It was dark. It looked elegant on a noble table. In medieval Europe, pigeon was not dirty. It was not street food. It was not desperation food. It was high-status food. Medieval cookbooks included pigeon. The form of curry included pigeon recipes. It was created by cooks of King Richard II. Pigeon appeared beside swan and peacock. So today's trash pigeon has an old history. It once belonged to castles. It belonged to estates. It belonged to royal kitchens. It belonged to wealthy tables. But pigeons had another huge role. They helped Charles Darwin explain evolution. Before Darwin convinced the world, he needed examples. He wanted to show selection over generations. Humans had already done this with pigeons, so Darwin studied pigeons. He bought pigeons. He bred pigeons. He joined pigeon clubs in London. He wrote to breeders around the world. He studied strange pigeon varieties. On the origin of species, pigeons mattered. Darwin's point was simple. Many pigeon breeds came from one ancestor. That ancestor was the rock dove. Humans created fantails. Humans created tumblers. Humans created pouters. Humans created carriers. Humans created runts. Humans created Jacobins. Some look like different species, but they were all pigeons. Human preference had shaped them, generation after generation. Darwin saw this as powerful evidence. So think about that. You step around pigeons every morning, but you are stepping around Darwin's evidence. You are stepping around a famous example of evolution. Yet most people do not feel wonder. They feel annoyance. They think, please stay away from my shoes. So how did pigeons fall so far? How did royal food become a nuisance? The answer is 3 changes. They happened together. The first was the modern chicken. In 1948, the Chicken of Tomorrow contest changed poultry. It pushed chickens toward specialization. Chickens became efficient meat machines. But this changed more than chicken. It changed every other bird's value. A broiler chicken could grow large fast. It could reach about 6 pounds quickly. It needed relatively little feed. Beside that, pigeons looked inefficient. A pigeon becomes useful quickly, but it stays small. Squab may be ready in about 4 weeks, but it is usually around 1 pound or less. It must be harvested at the right moment. It must be taken before it flies. Once it flies, the texture changes. That makes pigeons hard for factories. Chickens became scalable. Chickens became predictable. Chickens became large. Chickens became efficient. Pigeons stayed small. Pigeons stayed delicate. Pigeons stayed timing sensitive. Pigeons did not lose on taste. They lost on convenience. They lost the logistics battle. The second change was urbanization.